Hello, I'm John Monino with Milton Township, and I'm also with the Township officials of DuPage. I'm here today with the Clerk of Courts, Chris Kachiroubas. How are you today, Chris?
John, wonderful. Thank you, and thank you for this wonderful opportunity.
That's great. Hey, can I ask you, how long have you been involved with public service, and what are some of your greatest achievements?
How long I've been in public service? I got out of college in 1977. I started in public service in 1977, immediately following graduation. I went to Addison Township and spent 24 years there. And so it's been a long time since, so that's what, 43 years if my math serves me.
Well, I know your wife, we get to catch up with you on Facebook and other social events. It's great to see how young of a couple that you look and appear.
Well, thank you very much. That's very kind. My wife will especially enjoy that compliment.
Okay. What is the function of a county clerk of courts?
All right, there are two clerks in the county. Okay, you have a county clerk. Jean Kazmarek is the county clerk. The county clerk takes care of all of the governmental operations, the tax codes, marriage certificates, she's the secretary and clerk to the county board. The county clerk of the court, okay, which is the separate, I'm found in the Constitution. I'm a constitutional office, found in Article 6. And it says basically that I am an ex officio member of the court, a non-judicial member of the court. Okay, it's critically important. That part of it is that I'm an independent body in that courtroom. Okay, you'll have the judge, and you'll have my designee. Okay, because we have 42 courtrooms, so I couldn't be in 42 places, so I have a designee. And then we have the sheriff's office, who through his sworn office, he has his designee in that courtroom. Now, in the state of Illinois, and in pretty much the country, the courtroom is an open session. You often hear, stated in open session or an open court. Correct. Something was stated. My job is not only to maintain the record and the files, okay, going back to 1839, which is when the county was founded. Actually, the first office to be sworn in when DuPage County became a county, or the county of DuPage in its geopolitical lines. The first office that was sworn in by a judge that came out all the way from Chicago was the clerk of the court. Then the clerk of the court swore in all the other officers, the sheriff and the rest. So our job is to maintain the record, to be a professional witness inside of each of those courtrooms. Basically, you cannot, in the state of Illinois, you cannot have open session in a courtroom without a clerk being present. That's part of my job. The other part of it is the record. We take the record, we maintain the record, but we also maintain the money. Now, we know that the court is, there's lots of fees, fines, and costs involved in the court. We know that. So the judges don't want to do that because they render decisions. The attorneys, they're there to practice, make their case, and move on. The money, which has been, established through the Springfield, the General Assembly, it's, normally, right now there's anywhere from, 20 to 50 to 60 different fees, fines, and costs in any combination, okay? Those generate money. So that money then comes to me, and then I pass it back down to the law enforcement agencies that have, in terms of that issued, whether it's a ticket, a violation, or, the defendant was coming from. So if a person was arrested in Elmhurst, and there was fees, fines, and costs attached to it, those fees go back to Elmhurst.
Of course.
My job is to get that money back to them in about a 30-day turnover. So when that money comes in, I make all the necessary entries to the record and then back to them. So three things. Then you have the record, the evidence, and the money. That's my job.
In your opinion, why does township government work?
Spending 24 years in township government, and now in my 16th year in the county, I can tell you township government is right down. It's right next to it. It's sharing elbow space with the people, okay?
Sure.
And my 24 years, I still get goosebumps a little bit that time, because when that person walks in, generally government has they've got a question, and there's general assistants, the highway commissioner, and the assessor's office.
Mhm.
Three critically important parts of people's lives, okay? And when they walk in that door, there's no walls, there's no, there's no facades. It's one-on-one. It's right there. It's very nitty-gritty. And that was my favorite part of dealing with people literally every single day, one-on-one. And so county is kind of removed. It's a little bit higher up. It's in the center of the county. You have to drive, anywhere from 14 to 16 miles at some points to get to the county.
Right.
In Addison Township was where I came from. In any given direction, it was less than 3 miles. In any given direction, 6 miles squared. So at any given mile, you were there.
Yes.
You were right on top of it. It didn't take you a whole day to get there, wait in line, and with the other several 100,000 people that might be at a county building. You were right there, and when you were served, and you knew these people. You knew them as a neighbor. You knew them. You saw the kids, went to school together. They played baseball. They might have played soccer together. You knew those people, and so there's a real closeness, okay? And so when you share that and you learn from them, and you teach them about what you can do for them as a government officer and leader.
You certainly are passionate about
I
can feel it.
Yeah.
And,
it was a great time.
The people watching can definitely feel it. So I think that's what makes you a fantastic clerk of courts, because you really your roots, where it comes from is the township, and how involved you are.
I tell you, John, that was some of my favorite times of my life. Were right there, and you could see it on their face. When you changed a person's life, you fixed something for them, or you made that phone call to get them, and sometimes, a lot of times when I was the assessor, I told them, don't just tell them it's not our job. Tell them where you can go to find the answer, okay? Whether it was the city of, or the village of Addison, or the city of Elmhurst in my case, where you went, tell them where to go to get the answer. And if they're going to stay there, make the phone call for them and tell them, hey, this is Addison Township. We got a guy here or a woman here, and they have a question. Can we send them over there? And who do they see? And we really worked at customer service.
That's passing the buck. You see in the big forms of government, in all places, even big business, it's always someone passing the buck. You sit on the phone call for 25 minutes before you get someone live. Township doesn't do that, do they?
And we talked about it at the township level. Now, I have 150 employees. It's a lot of people. And when I started, I had 200 employees. But we pared it down, used technology, brought it down to a more manageable. But the other part of it was, when I had the 12 people in our office, I told them, and we reminded them, and we were very intimate, 12 people in an office. And you remind people that, listen, you're saying it maybe for the 50th time this week about a homestead exemption, about a senior exemption, whatever. But it probably, for those people, it's the first time they've ever heard it. So you really got to get across that you care about your subject matter, you're informed, you know your subject matter, and you get it across to them that it's not a burden to tell them one more time this week about the homestead exemption or something like that. You tell them the information, and you know what? They walk out of there. They may not be happy about their property taxes, in my case as assessor, but at least they were treated fairly.
Yeah, definitely. We have Chris Levan here is in Milton Township, our assessor.
Outstanding leader.
He really is for the citizens.
Yeah.
And because he is one of them in the township, so it's great to be able to interact with him almost on a weekly basis and watch him. And I know you were as passionate with that when you were in Addison. And what we have community emergency response. That's CERT. We also have assault with seniors and law enforcement together, which we were just talking with James Mendrick, our own sheriff, regarding that. And
another outstanding leader, by the way, Jim Mendrick.
Absolutely. So, in your opinion, and he loved that as well, the assault and several other aspects. What do you see when you were at the township, and even maybe right now? What do you see that's important as far as township? the pillars of service. Is there other pillars of service that you know, a food assistance, general assistance?
Absolutely, those are all critical. But leadership, you know, when I was part of it, I was part of TOI, Township Officials of Illinois. I was a director. You know, I don't. If you're going to move up and you're going to do this, you lead not only from the stance of Addison Township, but to DuPage County, but also to the state of Illinois. There's ways of helping people, and General Assembly is where you need to go down there. You need to answer the questions, and most times you're stopping bad legislation as opposed to you know, putting through good legislation. You know, you got to get down there and you got to stop bad legislation. And as a leader, now those are all important things. The food pantry is an essential, given this time period, absolutely essential. And there are other parts out there. General Assistant, I think, amazing. The culverts and keeping flooding at a minimum for the Highway Commissioner's office. Okay, but the assessor's office, which this property tax bill is huge. It's becoming a larger and larger burden on the general public.
Right.
But as a leader at the assessor's level, you need to take that to Springfield, and you need to work with not only the county leadership, but with the state leadership in getting good and crafting good legislation that makes it fair, okay? The burden of the taxpayer is amazing, okay? And we're witnessing a kind of a revolution, or a second revolution again. When I came into it in the 70s and 80s, it was outrageously high. And then it kind of calmed down slightly, and then it's back up now, and it's taking on a bigger and bigger impact into the people's lives, okay? And we're seeing, you know, 36 million people out of work. Well, however, there's several thousand in DuPage County. That property tax bill is going to be a bigger and bigger piece of their life. And so the leadership at your level, at the township level, needs to be pushing harder and harder with Springfield and telling them, you know, I'm talking to these people every single day, where, you know, we recognize, 40,000 people maybe in a township. You know, when a House member, he represents 150,000. A senator represents 300,000. They're somewhat removed, okay? You guys are right there. You're standing next to these people. And you need to convey to them how important it is to get a hold of these property taxes and either channel them in another direction,
Sure.
or soften the burden, okay? And that's where I think, that's where the essence of all of this is. Those are essential services we talked about, but this is even as critical as that.
Well said, and well directed. I think the people are really going to get a lot out of this. Thank you. How do you see township government serve the community and its citizens?
Again, you know,
Almost redundant. I apologize.
you know that, you know what, it's a little bit redundant, but not. I don't ever want to shortchange township government. It has been around for a reason for 160 years plus. Okay, out east, it is the government. They don't really have villages and cities and things like they do, but township government is very important. As you move towards the Mississippi from the East Coast, it came on, and it's still there. Thinking about where the history of that township government comes from, all the way back to Thomas Jefferson, you know, and breaking up and laying out the very foundation of township government. And it was the go-to government, geographically, way back, okay? Villages and cities filled in over time,
Right.
and then the county government came along, and it was that part of county government said, okay, we're going to take care of the legal part of it, okay?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to maintain the jail, we're going to have a sheriff, we're going to have the judicial system. But township government was the one that people went to when they had a problem, okay?
Yes.
Villages and cities have taken on that, but they still don't have the power for general assistance, okay? And treating and taking care of the people who need it on a
Yes.
daily basis. Townships governments is never going to go away. Highway commissioners are out there. Highway commissioners, as I understand, still have as much, half or as many roads unincorporated that are incorporated in the county of DuPage.
Sure.
So their importance is critical. It's still critical to keep those roads open. But township government will always be there. It was 160 years. I hope it continues for another 160 plus years.
I appreciate that, and I do as well.
Yeah.
Do you have any communication with any of the 9 townships? I know you currently live and reside in the Addison area.
Yeah. I do. I work with the highway commissioners a lot. Now, when they first came here, they were having some issues regarding, their jurisdiction, okay, through the sheriff's office and working unincorporated, especially with the tickets, okay,
Yes.
ordinance violations that are attributed to the township. So I worked with them, got them, shored up, and worked with them and getting them a proper ticket. And so we work almost daily, with them, if not monthly. The tickets are issued, there's a amount of money that's applied to that, and we turn it around and get it right back to the township. So it can be put into use in keeping the people, and giving people the government that they desire and want.
That's great. Well, I know you work hand in hand with Gary Muehlfeld,
Absolutely.
who is our Milton Township's
You bet.
highway commissioner, and he does just an absolutely fantastic job, not only with snow removal and whatnot, but he is a true patriot for the citizens of Milton Township, and people just love seeing him coming because they know something's getting done.
Yes, exactly.
So, I appreciate you working with the highway departments. That's very important. So, you were an assessor.
Right.
And from what I recollect, obviously a great one. What are some of your fondest memories of working in township government?
When I was assessor, and I came in 1977, this is the Wayback Machine, and I was there for a number of years.
Doesn't he look young? He looks so young.
But we had, there was, as I alluded to earlier, we talked about, there was a very tough time. Jimmy Carter was president, how far back that goes, right?
Yes.
And then the Reagan Revolution came up, and we had property taxes that were escalating at probably double-digit rates every year. So we worked with the general public, and we tried to get them to understand that we believed that we had to do it lawfully. We had to do it, and we had to do it fairly, okay? And so we would work with these seniors, and we would work with these people, and we had some people that were just, your heart broke, because they sat across the table from me telling them that they didn't know if they were going to be able to pay for their medicine or pay their property taxes. So we worked with them. We absolutely worked with them. When I became assessor in 1991, one of the more gratifying things is I collected signatures. I collected over 5,000 signatures, went down to Springfield. This is when I talked to you about working in Springfield. I went down there, took these signatures, okay, and we called it STARS, Senior Tax Assessment Reduction, and so we brought it down there. I brought it down to the Senate. Senator Angelo DeAngelis was the senator in charge of revenue at that time, or he was the minority leader at that point on this committee. And he sat next to me, and we testified about what was going on with the seniors and how we had to bring around some way where we would bring at least help and hope to these people. And so we went after the senior assessment freeze, which came in 1992.
Right.
So I was down there, I testified in front of the House, I testified in front of the Senate, and then it was defeated. And the governor it was passed, and the governor vetoed it, Edgar, vetoed the bill. So I was working on the House floor. Judy Biggert was a House member, Lee Daniels was a House member. I worked all those House members, they knew me personally, from Addison Township. I was working them, and we overrode Governor Edgar's veto, okay? And much to the chagrin of many of my township assessor peers that were there at that time in DuPage County, they didn't want that particular legislation, but we got it done, and now they are the biggest fans of that legislation. And so now, when I started that bill it was at around $32,000 gross household income. It's now at the $65,000, I think it is roughly now. I've been out of it for a while. But that bill has made a big difference. It's frozen assessments, okay? It's caused some problems over the time frame, and I understand it. It doesn't always work smoothly. All legislation doesn't work smoothly. But there are a lot of people out there right now, senior citizens, who are now in a better position, okay, to pay their property taxes because they have less gross income coming into their home, and they're able to manage it, okay? Is it a perfect solution? Absolutely not. Nothing is ever perfect, okay? But it's a better solution. And so that's one of the more gratifying high points as assessor, to be at the point of that spear, to get that legislation done, to override Governor Arter's veto, and now it's been there since 1992. So we're now coming up on almost 30 years of having that bill there. Yeah, so it was a huge thing for me, but it was one of those things where you need to take what you know, take it to Springfield, and hopefully you can change their minds.
Working with seniors throughout, from the elder law to the newest seniors just turning the 65 range,
Yeah.
they really love that you did that and worked so hard for them, because it wasn't just a quick bill pass.
Yeah.
And I recall that very well.
I had a great honor, I had a great honor,
please.
just recalling a great honor. Judy Bartabinka, okay, remember Judy,
Of
okay?
course,
We
yeah.
served in several capacities, and she was a state senator at the time. And so I'm up in the gallery, and so she sees me, and she's come on out. So she waves me onto the floor, and she says, I want you to know, and she's talking to the other senators, this is, you know that senior assessment freeze? It's the Kachiroubas bill, it's him, he's the guy who did this. I go, okay, Jude, now I'm done now, Senator, I can leave now, you know, and she was wonderful, and she never really forgot that whole thing, and I was honored to even be associated with it, but there were so many other people that had that bill. I worked at my very small level, and got the Lee Daniels and the Judy Biggerts and a few of the others to turn their vote and vote against the governor at that point, to override the veto. But I was pleased at whatever little small portion I played.
Oh,
Yeah.
humbleness is incredibly well spoken. You did a lot back then, so we appreciate it. Now, I have to go into the whole COVID-19 thing.
Sure.
The outbreak has drastically changed the operations for almost all entities. How is it that it affects your role as a county clerk of courts?
Oh my God, how didn't it over the last 2 months? My goodness. Again, the court is an open session, and we talked about this earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So you now have to manage people when they come in, okay? And the court is open from 8 o'clock in the morning till 4:30. The chief judge sets time and place. The doors are never closed. So we were, while the county was able to close their doors and do everything by appointment, okay, at the 421 building,
Right.
the courthouse doesn't work like that, okay? And we worked under a different set of rules, and that kind of it felt like it was jeopardizing my employees, okay? Having the general public being able to walk into our office literally every single day. Whatever peak we were talking about, whether it was the peak in March and the peak in April, now we're supposed to be going through the peak in May, whatever it was. And what happened was the chief judge at that point said, we're going to shut down courtrooms. We brought it down to about 5 courtrooms, and we have no traffic. Well, what it's doing is moving everything back, and it's complicating. Now, you can only kick the can on law, on a person's right to have due process
Yes.
for so long, okay? Well, we've reached that point. Tomorrow morning, on May 18th, we're starting the civil part, okay? But it's changed our life, because now the civil division is contemplating doing some of their hearings and petitions under with visual, like Zoom technology and some of the other telecommunications.
Sure.
Okay, we're changing, but I still have to have my clerk in court. We still have to have a judge, and so it puts some stress on my people that they have to be present. Okay,
Of course.
and so they don't have a choice. And so we went through and we changed schedules, we moved things around, and we're now getting the civil division up on May 18th, and then on June 8th starts the criminal traffic. And then people who had tickets or violations probably in January and February are just now having their day in court in June. It's gonna tax us probably to the most we can do, okay? I mean, our people are going to be pushed, And so we're gonna have a lot of people in that courthouse. There's gonna be a lot of, I hope the social distance is maintained. We're gonna have to do that now differently. We're gonna have to
Yes.
try to maintain that. But people are going, they need their day in court, so you have to balance the day in court, okay, with social distancing and health concerns. So we're wrestling with that literally every day between myself and my management crew and how we balance all that. Protect our clerks, our designees, our deputy clerks, and the general public.
Well, I really, I just really commend you for your due diligence and looking at all the angles. You have to really do things so differently for the safety of oneself. And we're not scientists. I'm certainly not. But there's different situations of this person might have an ailment and this person's immune system. Now you have to look at everything. So I just want to thank you, and I'm hoping to ask you on this camera live if you'd come back in a month or two and maybe let's do this again. And
Absolutely. John, I loved it. Thank you, cameraman.
Alex Hines as well.
Alex, thank you very much. I appreciate your time and everything, especially on a weekend and like this. Thank you. But I got to tell you, this has been a wonderful opportunity, John. I would be happy to come back and tell you, maybe some of I hope there won't be horrible stories or horror stories once we get those courtrooms open, but I'll be able to relate some of them.
Clerk of Courts, Chris Kachiroubas here. I'm John Monino with Milton Township and the Township officials of DuPage. We thank you for your time.